Welcome, basketball fans. Thank you so much for joining me today. I have a very special guest here with us, former NBA champion Tracy Murray. Tracy, thanks for coming on today.
Well, thanks for having me, CJ.
Well, first off, I want to ask you how you're doing right now during quarantine, the lockdown. What have you been doing to keep yourself busy?
Well, family time has been a blessing out of all of this. You get to spend a lot more time with your family and your significant other, and we've been playing card games and playing pool and swimming, and bike. The kids been bike riding with my wife, so everything has been really cool. It's just we've been able to be around each other more, and that's missing sometimes when you're busy and you're working and you're in and out of town. So that's the blessing through the quarantine.
No, absolutely. I think right now, especially, you really feel the value of family. And I think that's one blessing that really comes out of all of this. And as you should enjoy the fruits of your labor right now, for sure. One thing I want to do ask you is you are huge on helping the younger generation of basketball players get better, develop their skill, being a veteran yourself. Right now, we're seeing a lot of younger players, high school prospects, top elite players going to the NBA G League instead of deciding the traditional route of college or overseas. What do you think of this decision and how it'll change the new pipeline of going into the NBA?
I think there's going to be more to do it unless they make another rule that the kids can go straight into the NBA. If they're good enough, they're going to go right on up, like a LeBron or Kobe or KG. Or if they're not good enough, you're going to see them slide through the G League and use that as a pipeline to try to get there. But the problem with that is, some, if you're not, what am I looking for? If you're not skilled enough or you don't cut it, you can that can be it for you though. I mean, if you then you don't have a college degree to fall back on, and I'm not saying go to college for 4 years because I'll be a hypocrite saying that with me leaving a year early. But I did go back and get my degree. I do know the importance of life after basketball and things you have to transition into. Not everybody's going to be that $100 billion player. So what are you going to do after basketball?
But do you think the NCAA is going to possibly make some changes now that the G League is stepping up their game?
I don't think the NCAA is going to be able to do anything about it if the NBA is going to allow them to come into the G League. You're just going to be missing a bunch of, you know, talented young players. But what March Madness what's been the excitement about March Madness is a lot of these third and fourth year players you may not have heard of that are knocking out these young guns that's all everything. That's Cinderella's have been propelling lately. So you gotta look at the experience means a lot.
Hmm. And then I want to ask you about the Lakers. I know you're really connected with the LA area. You were a UCLA Bruins, former players, former coach. And right now, the Lakers, before the season ended, they were doing really great, number one in the
Yeah.
Western Conference. If the season didn't end, if this whole coronavirus didn't happen, what do you think their chances of winning the whole thing would have been?
I think they were playing unbelievable basketball at the time. It couldn't have been the worst timing for them. Um, I still think, even though they won that last game against the Clippers, which was important for them, for their psyche moving forward, I still think they would have had problems with the Clippers in a 7 game series. I'm not saying they would have lost, but I think it would have gone 6 or 7. So I think the Clippers kind of had their number, and especially from a toughness point of view. And that's why you saw the Lakers go pick up a Morris later on because they needed more toughness. So it would have been exciting.
So, if you were on the Lakers right now on the coaching staff, what would you be focusing on during this time where you might be coming back in May, at least for the facilities, but you don't know if the season is going to continue where it left off or start completely new? As a coach, what would you be thinking right now?
Well, right now as a coach, you still have to prepare like the season is going to happen, and you guys are going to really hit the ground running. So you got to have things in place, and hopefully your players are in some type of shape. Because if they're not, whatever you're planning to do tactic wise, you might have to re up. You might have to try something else because guys aren't in the shape that they should be in to execute it. So Right now, if you're a coach, you're just hoping guys are still working out. You're hoping guys are getting shots up or getting some reps up. And then, if you happen to get together, you're going to, have a couple of hard practices to kind of get them going and get them back on pace. And then you're going to try to map out some type of road for them to follow, because it might be one like the lockout year when we're locked out. It might be a 50 game season. It might be less than that. It might be just the playoffs. It might be a tournament. I've been hearing all kind of different things. So whatever it is, those guys have to be prepared to go like right now, as soon as they step in the facility when they're told to start playing.
Taking in just the situation of everything going on with the pandemic and also the shape these players are in, what would you say is the best option of how we continue the season, whether that be a tournament or restarting next year or just playing out a shortened season? What would you say is the best option when you're looking at players, but also what the fan base wants?
I know the fan base wants basketball. They want it. I mean, they're starving for it. They want to see a champion. They want to see the season completed. But at the same time, you don't want to hurt these players moving forward with injuries because they're out of shape. That happened a lot during that lockout, during the 50-game season. Guys weren't in shape. Guys were getting hurt, little nagging injuries. Some had major injuries, and it hurt franchises moving forward. So whatever way it's done, it's got to be a smart way of moving forward with this.
No, and absolutely. Even the Olympics, right? Some of these guys were
Yeah.
playing on Team USA and they were planning on this summer going to the Olympics, and now they have to push that back for next year, which is kind of double what they're preparing for this season, next season, and the Olympics.
Yeah, no kidding. That's going to be a lot of basketball finishing up this season, next season, and the Olympics. I'll tell you what, hopefully those guys that are going to be on that team are being smart right now, and they're really building their bodies up and also getting the rest that they need for this future pounding that's about to happen on their bodies, because it's going to be no joke for them.
So we better not hear any load management when the season comes back, right?
You might see more load management because of the situation, which is going to be sad for the fans if they allow fans in. Now, if it was me, if I was the NBA moving forward this early, I think they can start games, but you have to make sure that everybody that's in the arena is tested, and you have like your scores table people there, maybe a couple media people, your cameras in place, your two teams and the referee, and that's it. No fans.
How
I
would you
hate to
feel
say
about
it.
playing with no fans? We knew earlier when this idea first started getting floating around, LeBron was like, "No, I'm not playing with no fans."
Right,
But I
right.
mean, he did change his opinion after. But if you were a player, would you be okay with playing with no fans if you're just focused on the actual game, or is there really no point for you?
You got to look at life and death. I mean, you don't know who's bringing that in. Who's bringing in the coronavirus to the arena. At least when the players are tested, game day staff, and the referees, you know what you're getting coming in there because everybody's passed the test. You just don't know what's coming in there from the fans. So you almost have no choice but to start with no fans. That's if the fans want basketball back. If they don't want basketball back now, then they're just gonna have to wait a while. But if they want it back now, it's gonna have to be without fans, and they're gonna have to deal with it, and they're gonna have to just follow it through the TV. Now the players is gonna be a little bit hard because the adrenaline's not flowing. You don't smell the popcorn. It's like you don't have the fans and the people yelling at you or the people taunting you. So that's where it's gonna be different for the players. But I think if you really love the game and you really want to get back to work, you're going to have to take the safety precautions and do it this way.
Well, I think us as fans right now, I would take anything. I don't care if there's no fans in the stands. Pickers can't be choosers right now. I miss sports so much right now. I'm so glad there was just the NBA draft and the NFL draft. So thank God there was still something going on. I do want to shift gears a little bit here. 2020 has definitely not been the best year so far with coronavirus.
Right.
And even earlier on this year when Kobe Bryant, one of the best basketball players of all time, passed away tragically. And you did spend quite a bit of time with him. You were a teammate of his in 2002, and then also in 2015 when you switched roles and was an assistant coach with the Lakers. Tell me a bit about Kobe and what characteristics you just really admired about him.
His drive. He wanted to be the best. That's something. As a teammate, sometimes it can bother you a little bit because if you want to be the best, you got to be a little bit selfish to be the best. So you're gonna take some shots that may be tough or maybe somebody else's shot on the team or because you want to win because you're playing for a legacy. And honestly, your legacy depends on your teammates too. If you're winning world championships, that helps your legacy individually. So I mean, what I saw from a young Kobe all the way through the Kobe till the end was I saw him go from a young boy at 18 years old, 17, 18 years old, to a 38-year-old man at the end. He wasn't the same Kobe at the end, but you saw his maturation. You saw, how important his teammates was to him from when he was young, when he thought he can just do it all by himself, to the end, the championship years with Gasol and Odom and Metta World Peace. You saw his trust in his teammates. And that's something that he had a hard time doing if you didn't win championships with him. He trusted Shaq, Derek Fisher, Rick Fox, Robert Ory. They won championships with him. With me, I still had to kind of prove myself to him, even though I was proven as a player what I can do. So it's different when you come into a championship situation where they won 2, 3 championships in a row. We were going for 4. We were trying to do something that was never done before. So and then the way the whole thing started that year. I get traded from Toronto. I had an arthroscopic hip surgery to end my season there. I'm not coming into the season 100%. Shaq has a big toe surgery. Devin George gets hurt at the beginning. Rick Fox gets suspended with the fight with Doug Christie. So we start off in the hole. And Kobe has no one really he trusts out there besides Robert and Derek Fisher. So he is shooting a lot of balls, and he's trying to keep the Lakers afloat until Big Fella come back. And until Rick gets off a suspension, until Devin come back, there are more people he trusts that were out. So the people that were there trying to help, they didn't have that trust yet. So that was a situation, especially in the first half of the season that year until Shaq came back.
Well, even more in that year, right, when you came back on the team and you were recovering from injury and Kobe didn't really know you that well. How important was it for you to get his trust? How important was that for you?
Well, we knew each other because we were represented by the same agent. So I was one of the first guys he met when he first got to LA because he came up to Venice Beach, the old infamous wrist break. I was there. I saw him shake a defender up out on the outside court at Venice Beach, dunk on him. The beach goes crazy, and then he did the same thing and embarrassed the guy again. Then he swept his legs and he broke his wrist. So I've been knowing him since he first got to LA. So that wasn't it. It was just more of the on court trust. That's different than just knowing somebody. You have to know that if this guy is going to put in the same work you put. See, that's the thing about the Michael Jordans of the world, the Kobe Bryants of the world. It's like they are hard workers. They work extremely hard. And they feel if they're working this hard or if they're leading by example doing these things, you better sure damn be doing it yourself, and they crack the whip on those who don't. You know what I'm saying? So there's it's a trust factor that you have to earn throughout that. It's
No, and I love what
championship
you
level.
say. Yeah, I love what you say about how guys like Kobe and MJ, when you look at them, it's just all about hard work, right? Like they have the genetics a little bit, obviously, but just the hard work. And even what you're seeing right now with the MJ documentary, I mean, people do know the story of MJ, where he came from, Scotty, but just hearing it again, like these guys coming from these small towns, nobody cared about them in high school and college, and then bam, their hard work all paid off. And I think it's just so motivating for young players and for anyone, even if you're not an athlete.
Yeah, I mean, the crazy thing about those guys is they had God-given ability, they had talent. It's just that you add their natural talent, which is a high level, and then you add hard work to that. I mean, that's how you become in the GOAT conversation. You got to have that hard work to go along with the skill set that you have. And both of them were extremely fundamentally sound and extremely good athletes. They were both very strong. They both took pride on both ends of the court, being two-way players. See, we didn't talk about two-way players back then because it was just was something that you were expected to do. But nowadays, there are so many guys that do one thing very well that they're highlighting the Kawhis of the world now. Oh, he's a great two-way player. That's something that wasn't talked about back then.
Well, what do you tell the younger players now that you coach, that you mentor, who are looking to get into the NBA or looking to get into college? What do you tell them about the skill sets they really need both off the court and on the court?
Well, I mean, one thing we preach in our program is that it's funny that as much as I can score the basketball, being California's all-time leading scorer at one time and averaging 44 points a game as a senior in high school, it's like for people to hear me talk about defense, that's driving people that's confusing people because it's confusing people because that's the main focus. As a matter of fact, I'm the defensive coordinator for our program, and my brother is the one that's running the sets and talking about the offensive side. And people are like, "You didn't play defense. What are you talking about?" But I give them a scheme which is going to keep them successful and keep everybody on the same page. Because if you give these guys too much, then they're going to be confused and they'll be. If you do everything the same way all the time, there's no excuse for missing a defensive assignment or a rotation. But if you give them so many different ways to play the defense, now they're confused with what they're in, and now offense can pick you apart and get easy buckets because three guys on one page, two guys on the other. So we give them one thing to zero in on in the half court defense, and our full court press, we do it differently than everybody else, and we do it one way, and then we load up the paint on the weak side because there's no illegal defense. So we load up the paint. It's like we're gonna force you to beat us from the outside.
Now, do you tell these guys to really focus in on the guy they're guarding, like looking at his chest or something like that, fundamentals like that?
Yes, and that's in a one-on-one situation. But what bad habit these kids have is that they watch the NBA. We tell these kids to watch college or watch, very good high school players that are fundamentally sound because you're not supposed to be hugging your man on the weak side. If the ball is on the left, you're supposed to be in the paint, being that help defender for people that are on the strong side that might get beat. And these kids watch the NBA because there's illegal defense. If you're clogging the paint and you're not guarding your guy over here, you have to be within a certain distance. So now you got high school kids who are hugging their man 20 feet away from the basket, and it's like, what are you doing? You are not there yet. You'll learn that when you get there. This is what you need to know right now and the next level.
Well, any basketball players, you heard it here. Don't hug your guy on defense if you're not in the NBA yet. So that's some great.
Yeah, get in help position.
Yeah, help position. Don't hug nobody yet until you're making millions in the NBA. Well, thank you so much, Tracy, for coming on today. I hope you and your family get to spend some more time and you make the best out of this quarantine right now.
Thanks for having me on, CJ. Take care.